come back over the knuckles. I'm just laying my outline, and as you can see how tight that is, I might loosen that up a little bit. Usually with gauze, if you get it too tight, it's going to be right in here on the side of the hand. How does that feel? Good? Once again, I'm going to go across the back with the X Factor, over the top of the knuckles, and back across the top of the hand. I'm going to make one light loop around the thumb, underneath the wrist, over the top, come back around the palm, underneath the knuckles. And from this point, I'm going to come up under the thumb with one more wrap. From here, I'm going to proceed to finish off the wrapping, focusing on protecting the back of the hand. Once again, I told you during the workouts, here's where you'll generally break your hand if you're going to break it. The little bones that make up the top of your hand. If right here, I don't think there's enough around this joint to protect it, I'll do one more light wrap and finish this wrap off. As you can see, these wraps are longer than your workout wraps. Gives you lots of support. Have your fighter squeeze his hand. Does that feel good? Yes. Make sure that you're not cutting off the circulation. Keep it squeezed, keep it fist form so they can come over, open, squeeze, and continue to finish with the wrap. I like to get plenty on the wrist. Remember, when you're wrapping hands, you're not wrapping your hands as a weapon. You're wrapping your hands to protect them from injury. With the way Tidal makes their equipment today, you don't have to really worry if you go through the proper procedure of hand injuries. Finish out on the wrist. In amateur boxing, there's a limit to how much adhesive tape you can use. You can use one wrap around the top of the wrist, completely around the hand, like that. And then you need to take you a couple strips. In amateur boxing, they will not let you put any tape on the palm of the hand. So take you a couple strips that are about 4 inches long. Now with this tape here, we're once again going to make the X Factor on the back of the hand to protect those bones. Then, since you can't go around the hand, you will take off one more strip about 3 to 4 inches long, and you will wrap it right over the top of the knuckles and stop it right there at the sides. It's always good before you wrap a hand to ask the boxing commission what is allowable. This hand right here is a good competition hand wrap for your amateur boxing. Now we are going to look at a professional hand wrap. I always take my fighter and massage his hand a little bit, make sure the blood is flowing into his hand. This is a great time for a trainer and his boxer to look each other in the eye, get a read on your boxer, what's on his mind mentally. It's the most important part of the fight before the fight. It gives me an opportunity to talk to the boxer and really know what's on his mind, to see how tense he is, if I need to tighten him up a little bit or if I need to relax him a little bit. I started off by preparing these patches of gauze that I am going to use for the knuckle. I did that by just unraveling a hand wrap and slowly going back, make myself a little patch. I use an entire roll of gauze as such. After you do that, you'll end up with a result like this. Take it, flatten it out. It's always good as a trainer to do this in your hotel room or before you get to the arena so that you have those pre-prepared. I take my fighter, I massage his hand to get the blood flowing. I'm talking to my fighter and I'm looking in his eyes. I'm getting a feel for how he feels about this fight. I'm going to start with a hand wrap. I'm once again using my gauze that I purchased from Title Boxing. 1 inch width, and I'm going to start 1/3 of the way up the arm. Ask the fighter how he feels. I like to get plenty of wrist support on that wrist. I come down as I wrap around the wrist. I do it very secure, and I continue to keep tension. I continue to ask my fighter how it feels so that I don't get it too tight. How does that feel?
Good.
Good. I come across the top of his hand, and I wrap that thumb. I come back, and I concentrate mainly on the knuckle area, as such, and the X factor on the back of the hand. As we talked about in other wrapping experiences, on this side of the hand is usually where you'll get it too tight by pulling it too tight. Continue to stop, ask your fighter how it feels, have him make a fist. Feel okay?
Feels good.
And continue to wrap. At this point, I've used about half my roll of gauze. I take my pre-prepared gauze, I put it on the knuckle. This is to give him better knuckle protection. The last thing I want to happen is my fighter to jam a knuckle, break a hand during the course of the action. It makes him a one-handed fighter and gives his opposition too much advantage. I lay it on there and I come around and use the gauze to wrap it onto the knuckles. This gives him further added protection of the hand. When you're wrapping for professional, you're allowed to use 1 roll of gauze in most states. I do highly recommend that you talk to the Athletic Commission in the state you're boxing before you start the hand wrapping process and ask him if there's any guidelines that you need to follow. He will remind you and instruct you on how to wrap the hand. You'll generally have a boxing commissioner watching you wrap to make sure that you don't break any of the guidelines. As I finish off with this 1 roll of gauze, I once again stop, ask my fighter how he feels. At the same time, I'm getting a feel for his mental frame of mind. Gives us an opportunity to go over the last game plan that we had planned before the fight time. This usually takes place about 45 minutes before the fight. You don't want to wrap the hands too soon because the sweat from the fighter will make the hands heavy, and also you want the hand wrap to stay good and tight. You don't want it to work itself loose. As I'm finishing off here, since this is the gauze part of the hand wrap, I'm going to finish off up high, use all the wrap, and now I have my hand wrapped like that. I want to use, since the boxing gloves are so tight and the hand fits so tight into the glove, I want to make sure that when he slides his hand in the glove that this doesn't pull back and leaves his knuckles exposed. So I have stripped off some tape that I use for in between the fingers. I start it back here. I squeeze it tight in between and hold that gauze down. Very important. Several factors. You don't want your fighter to get a broken knuckle, and you don't want to get in any trouble for hitting a guy with bare knuckles and doing damage to your opponent, unnecessary damage. After I have that there, I take my roll of adhesive tape, and just as I started my hand wrap, I start up here on the wrist. Unlike amateur boxing, you're allowed to go completely around the palm of the hand, completely around the hand. In fact, I do it just like I did the hand wrap. Come up under the knuckles, over the top. It's very important here that I don't go down on top of the knuckles. I stay in back of the hand on top of the knuckles like that. Your boxing commission will tell you what is allowable in their state. Once again, I put the X factor to hold the bones in place. And depending on the fighter, I'll come around with a loose wrap